Previously, on Searching for Ghosts.
He told
Sergeant Staples
that he said he's changed his story at least 5 times since we've been here.
Since the police showed up at the mall.
We didn't find any corroboration that she was ever at the mall. And that is, like I said, we looked at the cameras the stores had, and, talking with people in the mall and everything, we didn't have anybody that remembered seeing her.
Well, the thing that still sticks with me is the fact that, she was reported missing at the mall in Jackson, Tennessee, and there was absolutely no evidence ever found that she was ever at the Jackson Mall. So that's the thing that just rings to me to be where the lie started, in my opinion.
Right.
This whole case with Bethany, this whole thing, is so unbelievable, and it is what it is. And I'm not going to make it any bigger than it is. Yeah. Nobody in this room is. It's already...
No, I think that we love Bethany. It's too much to make it anything that it's not.
Away from what it really was.
I mean, I don't want to sit here and all of us just make up these outlandish lies, and then, what good is that going to do us or Bethany? It's wasting all of our time. We're here to tell the truth as we know it, whether it be 100% or 10%. Just the truth as we know it, and try to raise some more awareness and get her home.
If you remember from last episode, we left off where Lori had finally gotten in touch with Larry Markowski. She and her husband were an hour away from Jackson at the Waverly exit, and Jonnie was trying to figure out a way to get there herself. Jonnie didn't have a vehicle of her own at the time of Bethany's disappearance. I'll explain why in a later episode. We also discovered that there were holes in the timeline or timelines given by Larry, and according to Jonnie, Larry told her that he was taking Bethany and her friend Christina skating that weekend, but went to Little Rock, Arkansas instead. Christina stated that she never knew about the skating plans. Lori picks up the story with something Larry told her over the phone.
He said about 1:30 or 2 o'clock, I think he said he let Bethany go in the mall. She was going to meet her little friend Hillary. And I don't know who Hillary is. I still don't know who Hillary is to this day. But, and so I said, who's Hillary? He said, it's her little friend that she knew here from Jackson. And
I don't have to tell you the importance of this information. If there were someone else with Bethany at the mall, this person could possibly be an eyewitness to the abduction, or at worst, a second victim. So Lori immediately calls Jonnie to see if she knew who Hillary was.
And I had told her about this little Hillary girl that he mentioned, and I said, do you know who Hillary is? And she said, yes, it's her friend. I said, well, call her family and see if they saw Bethany at the mall. And so she was doing that. I mean, we were working all ends of it as fast as we could. And then
I'm Brandon Barnett, and this is Searching for Ghosts, Season 2. Where is Bethany Markowski? Bethany's mother, Jonnie, might have been stuck in Nashville for the time being, but she didn't just sit idly by waiting for a ride. She started making some important phone calls. Jonnie and Lori should take pride in the fact that they got multiple people involved from the word go. Doing that gives credence to what Jonnie says when someone like myself looks at this case some 16 years later.
I called a lot of people when Lori told me that Larry said he couldn't find Bethany. I called first of all, Darlene, my lawyer secretary, just to make sure she knew right up front, Larry's pulling something weird, and I don't want him to get her, visitation anymore. She was a couple of blocks over from the mall with her soon-to-be husband. She did jump up and run to the mall and wrote a bunch of stuff on napkins that she eventually sent to me later. And Larry did tell her the same stories he told my sister Lori about going to going into Claire's or something with a friend Hillary.
I talked to Darlene to get her recollections of that night.
But we drove, and we were eating at Chili's. I'll never forget, at the front of the table. Just ordered our food, and got a call from Jonnie. And she was just screaming and crying on the phone. And she said, Darlene, you've lost her. He's not brought Bethany back. And I said, whoa, wait. I said, I'm in Jackson. She said, he's there at the mall. So we just ordered our food. I said, throw it in the to-go thing. We took it, my husband and I, went straight over there, and it was at the J.C. Penney entryway is where everybody was at the time. I was there, and I said, I'm representing Jonnie till she gets here. I said, I'm the, legal assistant to her attorney. I said, there is a big battle going on. This is not just, I've misplaced her. I don't know where she's at. The story he told them was that her and a girlfriend or something, or cousin or something, had gone in, and he'd taken a nap out there in the parking lot in his van for hours. You're talking hours. And he was telling them, they went in and they didn't come out, and, somebody probably picked them up, and,
In a letter dated March 6, 2001, from the law office of James H. Bradbury to Sergeant Hutchins of the Jackson Police Department, Darlene recounts the story about Hillary. Quote, I asked Mrs. Markowski what Mr. Markowski's cell number was, and she gave it to me. I called him immediately to see if we could help. I asked what happened. He told me that she was meeting a friend, Hillary, and that they were going to Claire's to shop for a hair something. He just didn't know what happened, and that when he woke from his nap, she was not there. Unquote. So Lori works to secure Jonnie a ride, while she and her husband make the 1-hour trip to Jackson. Pay close attention to the details that Lori gives about what she witnessed when she arrived at the mall, especially the jacket, or lack thereof. This will come up in a later episode.
So we got Diane involved, and my friend Diane, she ended up bringing Jonnie to Jackson, because the mall was closed when we got there, because it was already almost 6 when we left, so it was probably a little after 7, I guess, when we got there. And when we pulled up, I saw Larry Markowski in his van. He was standing kind of in front of his van, about 4 feet in front of it. It was March 4th, so it was like in the low 40s. Sun had already gone down. It was really cold. He didn't have a jacket on. He was it was kind of drizzling too that day.
I checked out the weather history for March 4th, 2001 in Jackson, Tennessee, and Lori's memory is spot on. The 2:08 p.m. report from McKellar-Sipes Regional Airport in Jackson recorded the temperature at 44.6 degrees with a 12.7 mile-an-hour wind, giving it a wind chill of 38.4 degrees. There were wind gusts as high as 24 miles per hour that Sunday, and over a half-inch of rain was reported. It was indeed a nasty day. When Lori gets to Jackson, she is greeted by Jackson Police Chief Rick Staples.
He came up to my husband and I, and immediately he got out of his car, because everybody was in their car except Larry Markowski. And he said, "Who are you and why are you here?" And I explained to him who I was. And I said, "What is he saying?" And he said, "Well, tell me what he said to you." So I told him about the conversation I had, that she went into the mall with her little friend Hillary. I said, "Jonnie's calling to see if Hillary had seen her and everything." And he said he had talked to Darlene, and he had told Darlene, Larry Markowski had told Darlene the same exact story about this little girl named Hillary. And he said, I said, "I don't know who Hillary is, but Jonnie knew who she is." And he said, and I said, "What's he saying?" And he said, he told Darlene the same story that he told you about this little girl Hillary. He said, but now he's saying he never told either one of you that. And I'm like, well, I didn't pull Hillary out of, I don't know who this little girl is. I've never heard her name. And he said, exactly. So
Hillary actually is a real person and a friend of Bethany's. Jonnie explains.
We had lived in Jackson, and Bethany went to school there. I think it was the 3rd grade. We had lived there for about a year. And we lived on Christmasville Road in a townhome. A few townhomes down from us was this little girl, Hillary. and her little brother. And Bethany and Hillary became really, really good friends. And, Hillary went on vacation with us. But that's who that Larry was talking about.
So Jonnie gets in touch with Hillary's mother, who not only explained what really happened with Hillary in the mall, but also mentions a change in Larry's appearance.
So I immediately called them, and her mom said that she saw Larry in the mall, and she even made a comment. His hair's so black, so black now, and saw him in the mall. And Hillary ran up and said, "Where's Bethany?" And he said, "I don't know. I'm looking for her." So that's the only way Hillary was involved with that story. Hillary never saw Bethany, so law enforcement went and talked.
So I decided to reach out to Hillary myself. She explains that when Bethany lived in Jackson, that they were very close, but hadn't been in contact much since Bethany moved to Gleason, let alone Nashville.
We did, but we were just neighbors. We lived a few houses apart, and I guess we started hanging out as just, neighborhood kids playing together,
right.
And we were pretty much joined at the hip from there. Like, either she was at my house, or I was at hers, or I was going on the truck with them. They had moved off to, I want to say Greenfield, Tennessee or something. So it had been a little while since we had seen each other. I'm sure we talked a few times after they moved off, but at that point, I didn't even know. I think I knew that her parents had split up or something,
yeah.
But I didn't even know the details of visitation and, her going to see him and whatnot and all that.
Hillary then talks about that Sunday at the mall and mentions again to me Larry's change in appearance without being prompted. According to Jonnie, Larry at that time had dark brown hair that was getting very gray.
I was at the mall. I was up there with, I think, my parents, maybe my brother or something, and we just happened to be walking through, and I had been there for quite a while, and I seen Larry. We saw Larry walking up, and he looked all weird. He had, sunglasses on in the mall, and he had dyed his hair jet black. And he was walking around with a security officer, freaking out, saying he couldn't find Bethany. And I was like, well, I'll help you look for her. We walked around, figured we'd just run into each other, and we kept looking or whatever. And then the next thing I know, the cops are up there. Everybody's freaking out. He says he can't find her, that, he's asleep in the car and let her go in the mall by herself. A few hours later, the cops came to my house and just came to ask me more questions. And, that's about the gist of it as far as that night goes. It was all, crazy for a while.
When asked, Hillary says that she remembers the story being told that she went to the mall with Bethany.
Yeah, see, I remember something about that. I remember him trying to say at one point or another, that me and her were hanging out in the mall. But I only heard it come up like that, back then when it all first happened. I don't think, nobody ever really read into it because, it wasn't true.
So it is unclear as to why Larry would make up this story about Hillary and Bethany. Was it to somehow make his version of events more credible? Whatever the reason, the only thing that it accomplished was that it added more doubt that Bethany was ever in the mall that day.
But everybody said, everyone knew we were best friends, so by the end of the night when nobody could find her, everybody was like, there's no way she was in the mall, or that you two were in the mall together, and, you never saw each other once.
Mike Holt, retired from the Jackson Police Department, even referenced Hillary when discussing how they could not find any evidence that Bethany was in the mall on March 4th, 2001.
We also found that during that time they had lived in Jackson area at one time, and there was a young lady in the mall that would have known her if she had seen her. And talking with people in the mall and everything, we didn't have anybody that remembered seeing her.
So back to Lori on the scene at the mall, still waiting for Jonnie to show up. Even though Larry didn't find it necessary for Lori to come to Jackson, he evidently called his mother.
We waited around, I guess, until you got there. I'm not even sure what time. It seemed like it lasted. It was so late.
We got there around 11 or so.
Yeah. It just seemed like it was forever. Before she got there, Larry Markowski's mom showed up. And she was being loud and belligerent and just ridiculous. But And the police officer told her, you need to go on back where you came from. I will arrest you. And, she was acting out enough where he was threatening to arrest her. And so she calmed down, and she was sitting in her car, and he came over to me. He said, I want to tell you, when your sister gets here, you need to tell her she needs to not act like that. And I told her, I said, there's not going to be an issue. And so I did let Jonnie know that, that what he had said, and of course that was never going to be the issue anyway. But when he got there, or when she got there, we all loaded up, I guess, and went to the police station.
Lori explains how that at the police station, she and Jonnie mainly waited as the police talked to Larry, and that the police made them aware of a noticeable difference between Bethany's parents' demeanor that night.
We were in like a break room where there's a TV and like snacks and stuff, and we were there probably till 4 o'clock in the morning, and they were only speaking to him because he was the last person to ever see her, and so I guess interrogating him or asking him lots of questions. And I know that there was a couple of different times that they came out and they were really irritated with him because they couldn't keep him awake. He kept falling asleep. He said, you guys are in here just crying and carrying on. He said, and I can't even keep him awake.
Jonnie has a similar version of events, the only difference being some colorful language.
We stayed, like Lori said, in the police station for a very, very long time, and I remember one of the police officers coming through, and I believe it was Sergeant Staples. He was very, like Lori had said earlier, very upset, and actually he basically said, every time I come in here, y'all are praying or crying or talking, and he said, and I've had to wake that asshole up 3 times to ask him questions, So I just don't understand how somebody could sleep at a time like this. And
while Larry Markowski was allegedly struggling to stay awake, this is what Jonnie was doing and thinking until 4 a.m. at the Jackson Police Department.
And while we were at the police station, like Lori had said earlier, we were kind of like in a break room, and it was me and my sister Lori and her then husband Larry and Diane, and we were praying and crying and trying to figure out. I never will forget, as long as I live, it was chilly that night, like Lori said earlier, and it was mist and rain. And when they had given me a description of what Larry Markowski had said Bethany had on, and it was just like black shoes, blue jeans, and a green short sleeve t-shirt, and all I could think of, it's so cold outside. And so when they gave me her bag to go through it to see if everything was in there that I had packed, the first thing I pulled out was her coat. So I knew wherever she was out there without a coat, and she was cold. And it's just, I can't even explain what kind of feeling it is. It's like you're not even in your own body. You want to be everywhere. You want to be able to get onto the top of a mountain and just scream their name. I think I did scream several times really, really loud. Hoping that, she'll hear you and she'll come out.
If you have any information about Bethany Markowski, no matter how small you think it is, call 1-800-THE-LOST.